lupa sa Jerusalem ay nag-crack ng walang babala. Isang supernatural na puwersa ang bumukas sa bundok ng mga Olibo, at sa puntong iyon, nagsimulang maging totoo ang isa sa pinaka-specific na propesiya sa buong Bibliya. Paano kung ang tingin nating simpleng geological event ay actually ang simula ng pinaka-awaited na moment sa kasaysayan ng sangkatauhan? Walang seismic activity na naitala bago nangyari ang mysterious crack. Mga scientist ay completely puzzled dahil walang warning signs, walang tremors, walang kahit anong natural explanation. Para bang isang divine hand ang kusang naghiwalay sa sacred ground na ito, creating instantly ang valley na pinropesya ni Zacarias 2,500 years ago. Mga satellite images ay nagpapakita ng perfect division ng tereno, exactly sa east at west, forming ang prophesied valley kung saan ang mga tao ay tatakas sa day of the Lord. Hindi ito random geological phenomenon. Ang precision ng split ay sobrang exact na parang ginawa ng master architect na may specific blueprint. Mga witness ay nag-report ng golden light na lumalabas mula sa fissure, accompanied ng sounds na parang distant trumpets. Ang mga otoridad ay agad na nag-isolate ng area without any official explanation. Bakit kaya ayaw nilang mag-explain? Ano ang tinatago nila sa public? Ang silence ng government ay naging stark contrast sa intense debate na nangyayari sa religious circles. Mga rabbi ay nag-question kung nakikita ba nila ang divine preparation para sa pagbabalik ng true Messiah, o kaya naman ay prelude ito ng manifestation ng isang great deceiver na binanggit sa end times prophecies. Ang Mount of Olives ay may prophetic weight na hindi matatawaran. Ito ang lugar kung saan nag-ascend si Jesus, kung saan niya nangakong babalik, at kung saan niya itatayo ang eternal throne niya over all the earth. Every stone sa mountain na ito ay may biblical significance na nag-connect sa greatest prophecy ng human history. Ang earth ay hindi na naghihintay. Actively na niniprepare na niya ang stage para sa most awaited event sa kasaysayan. Ang same mountain na inyahan ni Jesus para sa Jerusalem ay ngayon ay bumubukas bilang portal between time at eternity, turning millennial hopes into tangible reality. Mga signs ng end times ay hindi na future projections, presente na silang manifestations na nagdemand ng immediate decision. Ang mountain ay nahati, ang valley ay nabuo, at ang throne ng Messiah ay pinaghahandaan mismo ng Diyos. Ready ka ba na kilalanin na ang history ay papalapit na sa prophetic climax nito? Ang Jerusalem ay may 4,000 years ng recorded history, pero walang documented event na katulad ng nangyari sa Mount of Olives ngayong week. Ang sacred mountain na ito ay witness sa pinaka-crucial moments ng biblical timeline, mula sa time ni David hanggang sa ascension ni Christ. Ngayon, ang same geological formation ay undergoing supernatural transformation na nag-align perfectly sa Zacarias 14:4. Ang prophetic timeline ay nag-unfold ng hindi natin napapansin. Sa loob ng last decade, ang frequency ng biblical signs ay nag-accelerate exponentially. Mula sa blood moon sa feast days ng Israel, hanggang sa unusual weather patterns at political alignments sa Middle East, lahat ay tumuturo sa single conclusion. Ang return ni Christ ay hindi na malayo. Mga archaeological evidence ay nag-reveal ng fascinating details tungkol sa Mount of Olives. Ancient Hebrew texts ay nag-describe ng specific geological features na magbabago kapag dumating ang Messiah. Ang recent split ay nag-match exactly sa descriptions na ito, including ang direction ng crack at ang depth ng newly formed valley. Ang biblical geography ay may deep spiritual significance na often overlooked ng modern society. Ang Mount of Olives ay strategically positioned overlooking ang Temple Mount, symbolizing ang divine authority over earthly kingdoms. Ang prophesied split ay represents ang tearing of the veil between heaven and earth, opening ang way para sa direct divine intervention. Historical records ay nagpapakita na ang Jews ay nag-expect ng Messiah's return sa exact location na ito for centuries. Ang Talmudic writings ay nag-detail ng signs na magaganap before ang Messianic age, at ang majority ng mga signs na ito ay already fulfilled na. Ang splitting ng Mount of Olives ay isa sa final remaining prophetic markers. Ang scientific community ay struggling na mag-explain ang phenomenon through natural causes. Geologists ay adamant na walang tectonic activity na capable na mag-cause ng ganito ka-precise split. Ang absence ng aftershocks, ang perfect symmetry ng division, at ang supernatural lights ay challenging sa lahat ng known laws of physics. Ang religious implications ay extending beyond Christianity. Islamic prophecies ay nag-mention din ng significant events sa Jerusalem before ang Day of Judgment. Jewish messianic expectations ay centered sa Mount of Olives as ang location kung saan ang Mashiach ay mag-manifest. Ang convergence ng prophetic traditions ay making ang current events even more significant. Kung ganito na ka-specific ang mga signs na nangyayari ngayon, paano pa kaya ang mga susunod na events? Ang mountain na ito ay naging literal fulfillment ng ancient prophecy, pero ito pa lang ang simula. Ang next phase ng prophetic timeline ay mag-involve ng even more dramatic supernatural interventions na mag-shake ang entire world. Kung intrigued ka na ngayon, mag-subscribe sa channel. May marami pang hidden details sa story na ito na kailangan mo pang malaman. Isang linggo after ng initial crack, something unprecedented ay nangyari. Ang fissure ay nag-expand overnight ng walang seismic explanation, at ang newly formed valley ay naging deeper by exactly 12 cubits, ang same measurement na ginamit sa construction ng Solomon's Temple. Coincidence? Mga biblical scholars ay convinced na hindi. Ang expansion pattern ay nag-follow ng precise biblical measurements na nakasulat sa Ezekiel's vision ng Millennial Temple. Ang width ng valley, ang depth ng canyon, ang angle ng slopes, lahat ay mathematically perfect according sa prophetic blueprints. Para bang ang earth itself ay may divine architect na gumagabay sa every geological movement. Eyewitness testimonies ay nag-reveal ng disturbing details na hindi na-report ng mainstream media. Local residents ay nag-claim na rinig nila ang sound ng marching armies sa loob ng valley during midnight hours. Mga infrared cameras ay nag-detect ng unusual heat signatures forming military-like formations sa seemingly empty space. Ang Israeli government ay secretly nag-deploy ng elite archaeological teams sa site, at ang preliminary findings ay classified under national security protocols. Leaked reports ay nagsuggest na nakakita sila ng ancient structures emerging from ang newly exposed earth, structures na may Hebrew inscriptions predicting ang coming of Messiah's kingdom. Spiritual warfare ay naging tangible sa area surrounding ang Mount of Olives. Priests at pastors na nag-visit sa site ay nag-report ng overwhelming sense of divine presence, while others ay nag-experience ng oppressive darkness. Ang spiritual atmosphere ay polarizing, either overwhelming peace or extreme spiritual oppression, walang middle ground. Ang timing ng event ay precisely aligned sa Jewish calendar ng prophetic significance. Ang crack ay nagsimula exactly sa anniversary ng Jesus' ascension according sa ancient Hebrew lunar calculations. Ang expansion ay nangyari during ang Feast of Weeks, na traditionally associated sa divine revelation at supernatural manifestations. International intelligence agencies ay quietly monitoring ang situation, concerned about ang potential political implications. Ang religious significance ng event ay nag-attract ng pilgrims from around ang world, creating security challenges para sa Israeli authorities. Ang growing crowds ay chanting messianic prayers at expecting immediate divine intervention. Pero ang most alarming development ay ang sudden change sa behavior ng wildlife sa area. Birds ay nag-avoid na ang Mount of Olives completely, animals ay nag-migrate away from ang region, at domestic pets ay showing signs ng extreme agitation. Nature itself ay sensing na something monumental ay about to happen, something na mag-change ang course ng human history forever. Ang emotional weight ng prophecy ay bearing down sa mga believers worldwide. Sarah, isang Filipino missionary sa Jerusalem, ay nag-share ng life-changing encounter niya sa Mount of Olives. Habang tumatayo ako sa edge ng newly formed valley, naramdaman ko ang presence ng divine na hindi ko ma-explain. Para bang nakikita ko na ang future at present na magkakabangin sa single moment. Ang spiritual impact ay rippling through different denominations. Catholic priests ay nag-report ng increased confessions. Protestant pastors ay observing revival-like manifestations sa kanilang congregations, at Orthodox believers ay claiming miraculous healings during prayers directed towards ang Mount of Olives. Ang spiritual awakening ay crossing denominational boundaries. Mga doubters ay experiencing internal struggle between rational explanation at spiritual reality. Dr. Michael Torres, isang geologist na originally skeptical, ay nag-admit, ang scientific part ng utak ko ay nag-resist sa supernatural explanations, pero ang evidence ay overwhelming. Hindi ko ma-ignore ang precision ng geological changes na nag-align perfectly sa ancient biblical prophecies. Ang prophecy ay nag-trigger ng deep soul searching among believers. Mga Christians ay nag-question ang spiritual readiness nila para sa second coming. Ang reality ng potential rapture ay naging personal, hindi na abstract theological concept. Families ay nag-reconnect spiritually, couples ay nag-renew ng marriage vows, at individuals ay nag-surrender ng lives nila kay Christ. Jewish communities worldwide ay experiencing mixed emotions. Some ay nag-interpret ng events as vindication ng kanilang messianic expectations, while others ay concerned na baka fulfillment ito ng Christian prophecy about Jesus' return. Ang theological implications ay creating intense debates sa synagogues at rabbinic schools. Ang international Christian community ay mobilizing resources para sa potential persecution ng believers during end times. Underground networks ay being established, safe houses ay being prepared, at emergency protocols ay being developed. Ang church ay transitioning from peacetime ministry to potential wartime survival mode. Personal testimonies ay flooding social media platforms despite government censorship attempts. Believers ay sharing prophetic dreams, supernatural encounters, at miraculous confirmations na connected sa Mount of Olives event. Ang volume ng spiritual experiences ay unprecedented, suggesting na divine activity ay intensifying globally. Ang weight ng eternal destiny ay pressing upon every individual soul. Ang Mount of Olives split ay serving as wake-up call para sa lukewarm believers at final opportunity para sa unbelievers. Ang urgency ng salvation ay naging tangible, forcing every person to confront ang reality ng coming judgment at eternal consequences ng spiritual choices. Biglang nagtago ang araw sa 3:00 p.m. ng Martes, exactly 40 days after ng initial crack. Walang eclipse na predicted, walang atmospheric explanation, pero ang darkness ay nag-cover sa entire Jerusalem for exactly 3 hours. Sa same time, ang Mount of Olives ay nag-emit ng supernatural light na nakita from space, creating ominous contrast between divine radiance at unnatural darkness. Ang spiritual battle ay erupted sa visible realm. Military drones equipped with advanced sensors ay nagdetect ng massive electromagnetic disturbances above ang Mount of Olives, forming patterns na resembling armies sa sky. Radar systems ay malfunctioning, satellite communications ay disrupted, at electronic devices within 5-kilometer radius ay completely non-functional. Simultaneous manifestations ay nangyayari worldwide. Believers sa Philippines ay reporting visions ng angels marching towards Jerusalem. Churches sa South America ay experiencing spontaneous supernatural phenomena. Underground believers sa persecution countries ay claiming divine protection through miraculous interventions. Ang global spiritual activity ay synchronized sa Mount of Olives event. Ang Dome of the Rock ay mysteriously nag-crack at exact same moment na nag-expand ang valley. Islamic authorities ay panicking. Jewish religious leaders ay declaring prophetic fulfillment at Christian leaders ay proclaiming imminent return ni Christ. Ang 3 major monotheistic religions ay converging sa single geographical focal point. Demonic opposition ay naging aggressive at visible. Occult practitioners worldwide ay reporting loss ng supernatural powers, while satanic groups ay experiencing internal chaos at leadership conflicts. Ang forces of darkness ay desperately mobilizing against divine intervention, creating spiritual warfare na nakikita through natural disasters, political upheavals, at social unrest globally. Ang Israeli Prime Minister ay nag-call ng emergency cabinet meeting, while Vatican ay dispatching special envoys sa Jerusalem. Major world leaders ay privately consulting religious advisors, at intelligence agencies ay monitoring potential mass religious movements. Ang political implications ng prophetic fulfillment ay threatening established world order. Weather patterns ay becoming supernaturally controlled. Rain ay falling only sa Mount of Olives area, while surrounding regions ay experiencing drought. Temperature sa valley ay maintaining perfect 72 degrees despite seasonal variations. Natural laws ay being suspended in localized areas, demonstrating divine authority over creation. Ang climax ay approaching faster than anyone anticipated. Ang sound ng trumpets ay naging audible to human ears. Celestial armies ay positioning sa invisible realms, at ang earth itself ay trembling in anticipation. Every prophetic element ay aligning simultaneously, suggesting na ang moment ng Christ's return ay measured na in days, hindi na years o decades. Ang consequences ng divine intervention ay rippling across every aspect ng human civilization. Stock markets worldwide ay crashing as investors ay panic selling amid uncertainty. Religious tourism ay overwhelming Jerusalem's infrastructure, while secular governments ay struggling to maintain control over increasingly religious populations. Ang world ay forced to confront spiritual reality na hindi nila ma-deny. Economic systems ay beginning to collapse as people ay abandoning material pursuits for spiritual preparation. Banks ay reporting massive withdrawals. Luxury goods industries ay experiencing zero demand. At charitable organizations ay receiving unprecedented donations. Ang priorities ng humanity ay radically shifting from temporal to eternal concerns. Medical facilities ay reporting inexplicable healings among patients na nagpray towards ang Mount of Olives. Terminal cancer cases ay disappearing overnight, paralyzed individuals ay walking, at blind people ay receiving sight. Ang medical community ay documenting miracles na defying scientific explanation, forcing secular professionals to acknowledge supernatural intervention. Persecution ng believers ay intensifying sa countries na hostile to Christianity. Underground churches ay experiencing both revival at severe oppression. Government surveillance ay targeting religious activities, while believers ay reporting divine protection through miraculous escapes at supernatural concealment. Ang spiritual war ay manifesting through political oppression. Prophetic restoration ay beginning sa Israel. Ancient Hebrew practices ay being revived. Temple preparations ay secretly advancing. At genealogical records ay being verified for Levitical priesthood. Jewish religious authorities ay consulting ancient texts about messianic protocols, preparing for possible divine kingship establishment. International relationships ay realigning based on biblical prophecies. Nations mentioned in end times scriptures ay forming unexpected alliances, while countries opposing Israel ay experiencing internal conflicts. Diplomatic strategies ay being influenced by religious advisors, interpreting current events through prophetic lenses. Educational institutions ay introducing biblical prophecy courses as academic subjects. Universities ay establishing research departments dedicated to studying supernatural phenomena. Scientific journals ay publishing papers attempting to explain recent miraculous events, bridging gap between empirical observation at spiritual reality. Ang restoration process ay accelerating beyond human comprehension. Ancient biblical sites ay revealing archaeological treasures. Prophetic timelines ay synchronizing with current events, at spiritual awakenings ay spreading across denominational boundaries. Ang Mount of Olives event ay catalyzing global transformation na preparing humanity for transition from human rule to divine kingdom. Ang prophecy ng Daniel ay unfolding sa exact mathematical precision. Ang 70 weeks prophecy ay pointing sa current generation as final fulfillment phase. Ang Mount of Olives split ay marking ang beginning ng final week, ang last 7 years before Messiah's eternal kingdom establishment. Ang prophetic clock ay ticking with divine accuracy na hindi ma-ignore ng even skeptical scholars. Revelation 19 ay naging instruction manual para sa current events. Ang description ng Christ's return sa White Horse ay matching satellite imagery ng supernatural light formations above Mount of Olives. Ang armies of heaven ay corresponding sa unexplained aerial phenomena recorded by military equipment. Ancient prophecy ay becoming present reality. Ezekiel's temple vision ay providing blueprints para sa construction activities secretly beginning near Temple Mount. Ang measurements sa Ezekiel 40:48 ay matching geological changes sa Mount of Olives Valley. Ancient architectural plans ay manifesting through supernatural earth movements, preparing for millennial temple construction during Christ's earthly reign. Isaiah's prophecies about nations streaming to Jerusalem ay literally happening. Pilgrims from every continent ay arriving daily despite travel restrictions. International delegations ay secretly meeting with Israeli religious authorities. Governmental resistance ay crumbling against religious momentum na unstoppable. Ang prophetic magnetism ng Jerusalem ay drawing humanity towards final judgment. Zacarias 12:14 ay providing step-by-step prediction ng current events. Ang mourning over him whom they pierced ay beginning among Jewish communities worldwide. Recognition ng Jesus as Messiah ay spreading through Orthodox Jewish populations. Ang spiritual blindness mentioned sa Romans 11 ay being supernaturally removed from Israeli eyes. Matthew 24 signs ay culminating simultaneously. Wars, famines, earthquakes, false prophets, at persecution, lahat ay intensifying globally. Ang beginning of sorrow's phase ay transitioning to Great Tribulation period. Believers ay recognizing prophetic timeline acceleration, preparing for rapture while warning unbelievers about coming judgment. 1 Thessalonians 4:16-17 ay providing comfort para sa believers amid global chaos. Ang trumpet of God ay already audible sa Mount of Olives area. Resurrection ng righteous dead ay anticipated by Christian communities worldwide. Living believers ay expecting instantaneous transformation at rapture sa meet Christ sa air. Ang convergence ng all biblical prophecies sa single generation ay statistically impossible through human planning. Over 300 specific predictions ay aligning simultaneously, proving divine orchestration ng current events. Ang mathematical probability ay astronomical, confirming na human history ay approaching supernatural conclusion under direct divine intervention. Ang Mount of Olives ay hindi lang geological phenomenon. Ito ay God's final invitation sa humanity bago mag-close ang window ng salvation. Ang same mountain na nag-witness sa Jesus' agony sa Garden of Gethsemane ay ngayon nag-open bilang portal for His glorious return. Ang centuries ng waiting ay culminating sa generation na privileged na makita ang literal fulfillment ng ancient promises. Ang split sa sacred mountain ay symbolizing division ng humanity into two camps, those ready for Christ's return at those remaining rebellious against divine authority. Walang neutral ground sa approaching kingdom establishment. Ang valley ay naging physical manifestation ng spiritual choice na every individual must make. Accept Jesus as Lord o face eternal judgment. Personal preparation ay hindi optional. It's urgent necessity. Ang Mount of Olives ay preparing for Christ's feet to touch down, establishing eternal throne na mag-rule over all nations. But before divine kingdom comes, individual hearts must prepare through repentance, faith, at complete surrender sa Jesus Christ. Ang geographic preparation ay reflecting required spiritual readiness. Families ay being reunited through shared recognition ng prophetic times. Children ay nag-return sa parental guidance. Marriages ay being restored through mutual spiritual awakening. At communities ay forming support networks for approaching tribulation period. Ang Mount of Olives miracle ay catalyzing relationship healings na preparing believers for eternal fellowship. Ang legacy ng current generation ay being written through response sa prophetic signs. History books ay documenting those who recognize divine hand sa Mount of Olives transformation versus those who dismissed miraculous evidence. Eternal consequences ay dependent sa individual choice to acknowledge Christ's authority or reject supernatural truth. Time constraints ay forcing immediate decisions. Ang prophetic timeline ay accelerating beyond human control, leaving minimal opportunity for spiritual procrastination. Ang Mount of Olives is split ay serving as final warning before divine judgment commences. Postponing salvation decisions ay becoming spiritually dangerous as grace period ay rapidly closing. Ang calling para sa every believer ay mag-share ng Mount of Olives revelation with unsaved friends at family members. Ang supernatural evidence ay providing unprecedented evangelistic opportunities. Personal testimonies combined with prophetic fulfillment ay creating openings for gospel presentations na normally ay rejected by secular mindsets. Kung nag-touch sa heart mo ang story na ito, i-comment ang most meaningful part para sa'yo. At sabihin mo sa akin, anong biblical curiosity ang gusto mong makita sa next video? Mag-like, mag-share at mag-subscribe. Marami pa tayong hidden truths na dapat i-reveal. Ang Mount of Olives ay bumukas, ang prophecy ay nag-unfold, at ang Christ ay paparating na. Ready ka ba?